Yo, what's good? Back with another fucking video. Alright, so this video is actually going to be how to spot fair value gaps and how to spot inverse fair value gaps. So the reason I use fair value gaps is for better entry, better confirmation. Maybe in the chart we're seeking a gap, or maybe we're reacting off of a gap. So that's why I use fair value gaps and inverse fair value gaps. You can also use it as entries. So real quick, I mean, if you're like fairly new to trading, then you probably don't know what fair value gaps are. And it literally just consists of 3 candles. So for example, right here we have 1 candle, 2 candle, 3 candle. If you notice there's a gap from the first candle to the third candle, that's a fair value gap. Okay, so right here is a fair value gap. FVG. Alright, boys? Now, what do you come up? Oh, look, here's another one. Use this candle to this candle. This is another fair value gap. Look, it's being used as support. The one never got touched into. This one did though. So see, it came down, used the fair value gap as a support zone to then continue back up. Oh, look at this. We have a little one right in here. This is a fair value gap as well. And look, it gets used for support. Super strong confirmation when we're in the uptrend. So we're in the trend, so obviously the fair value gaps will continue holding. I am actually in a trade right now. I'm up $538, as you can see. My entry was right here off of this fair value gap. I'm just letting it go. I don't really give a fuck what it does. And that's how you have to have the mindset of trading. Who cares what your shit does? You're in a trade. But this is going to be my take profit up here, so I am going to put that up there. Let's check it out. Alright, we're up about 638. So, back to the video. So those are fair value gaps, right? I mean, it's pretty self-explanatory. Here's some more. I mean, I want to find good examples for you guys that are being used. So, let's go to the 5-minute candles. Alright, yeah, we can use one of these. Check this out. They're everywhere. They're everywhere on any time frame, just so you guys know. This is a fair value gap as well. Look. 3 candles. Gap in between them, right? Touched. 1, 2, 3. 3 support zones right there. So that was a pretty solid confirmation. This was a strong fair value gap zone, and then we broke through it. So now what happened? After we broke through it, it looks like we have another fair value gap. This is a bearish fair value gap. Okay, we're going down. This would be all the whites would be considered bullish fair value gaps. Bullish fair value gap. The black bearish. Obviously, it's going down, right? Now, really, we never came up into it, but guess what? Because we didn't come up into it, we can use this now as a confirmation that we could potentially want to seek out this fair value gap, this imbalance, and close it. So you could have a take profit zone at the top of this bearish fair value gap, or you could have it directly in the middle. So that's more confirmation that this price could potentially come up into that to fill that gap, fill that imbalance. All right, if that makes sense. It should. It's pretty. I mean, it's pretty easy. This is like dumb clear, honestly. Bearish fair value gap. This time we're using it. Look what happened to price. So price came down, come back up, test this bearish fair value gap, and then price shits the bed. All right. You seeing how these work? Now, there's that fair value gap. There's also a little fair value gap. You don't want to get fair value gap happy, but once you see them, you can't unsee them. They're fucking everywhere. Here's a little fair value gap. Obviously, we get broken right in through. This was a stronger fair value gap. I would have used this for confirmation to trade. But I only trade between the hours of 9:30 to 10:30. If there's no setup within that hour, I'm simply not trading. Today, cut it close. I was able to get an entry before like 10:30, I believe. What time? Right at 10:30. I fucking entered right at 10:30. Wow. So if you can get a setup and whatever. I'll let it run till whatever time it hits my TP. And look, these are all imbalances up here too. We'll go to the 5 minute so you guys can see. Here's the fucking fair value gap that we marked out. So I would want to see this come up to potentially take this zone, clear it, and we be in money. So let's keep finding some of these. Market's moving pretty nicely. I like it right now. I want to find good. All right, here's another good example for a bullish fair value gap. So boom, you have your 3 candles. Come right down into it to test it, to then come back up. Now listen, I don't want you guys to just purely take trades off of fair value gaps, but I mean, wow, during fucking PM session. So there's a fair value gap. I mean, you see they work. I mean, they're pretty strong confirmations, right? Here's another one. Bullish fair value gap. Get rate wicked into to continue back up, and then look, could have got a quicker trade in than the other one. Say you enter there, put your stops at this low, put your take profit all the way up here. That's a 1 to 4.5. Now I don't want you taking trades off of fucking just fair value gaps, but I'm just showing you this is how you find them. They're everywhere. You see the gap? I mean, you guys understand how to find these, right? There's really not much else I can explain about these. So this is a bearish fair value gap. Came down, now we come back into it to then shit the bed. You understand? Got it? Now let's try and find some inverse fair value gaps. Inverse fair value gap. Well, here's another bullish fair value gap. Right here. Bless me. So, I mean, you could use this too. Say you, I mean, there's no reason there's no reason you should be taking a trade right now at this time. But put your stops right here. Put your take profit potentially up to this wick. You would have got wicked out, but you would have probably taken partials up here and like right in here. So this would have probably been a break-even trade or a 1 to 3, 1 to 2.7. Trying to, let's look for some. We're up about 988 now. Alright, let's find an inverse fair value gap. Oh wait, right here I think we have an inverse fair value gap down here. I remember seeing one. Let's go to the 1 minute now. Alright, yeah. So this was used fairly quickly and it didn't last long. But look, right here we have a bullish fair value gap, right? Now, we didn't use this as a bullish support zone for this fair value gap. Instead, we broke right through it, and then what happened? We broke through it, we came back up to then use it as an inverse fair value gap. Okay, so now that turns into an inverse fair value gap. Why? Because we broke through it, and then we came back up to retest it to then continue back down. Okay? Now, obviously, we end up coming back higher just because that's where the market wanted to go. We took out sell-side liquidity and all that jazz. Here's another fair value gap. Wicked in, continued back up. We have another fair value gap up here. Now, obviously, my chart don't be looking like this all the time, but I am showing you these are all fair value gaps, right? We're up about 1,000. We're up about 1,200. I want to see this get filled. Take this buy-side liquidity and see how it runs. I am gonna sell some though. I'll sell 10 of them. Alright, there we go. Took profit. Alright, back to the charts. So, as you can see, this is the only inverse fair value gap that I was able to spot so far. We will find more. Let me actually see if I can make my own little structure here for you guys. So, we have 1 candle, 2 candle, 3 candle. I'm not putting any wicks. I'm not doing that shit. Sorry. But right here is a fair value gap, right? That's a fair value gap. Now what happens if we have a candle and we break completely through it? Ah, shit. That no longer is a fair value gap. What does this turn into? This now can be used as an inverse fair value gap. So now what if price does this? We come up into it, wick into it, and then we come back down. Just like that. Alright, let me act like these are some wicks here. We have a little wick in, little wick down, little wick in. So you understand? We basically have this. An up move, a down move, to then enter into that fair value gap again, to then continue down. Alright? 1 candle, 2 candle, 3 candle. This is a bullish fair value gap. We broke straight through with this engulfing bullish, engulfing bearish candle. So then we want to wait for a retracement back up into this inverse fair value gap to then continue to the downside. Got it? That's the same for every fucking one, pretty much. So now, I mean, shit. Honestly, there's like not much else to say about these fair value gaps, boys. Inverse fair value gap, fair value gap. I mean, bullish fair value gap here on the 1 minute. This was used as support. Now you would have got wicked out if you took. I mean, there should be no trade here though. Like I'm not trying to. I'm just giving examples, right? Just giving examples. Let's get out of the 1 minute. 1 minute structures us. Alright, so for example, let's go through all this. So what do you see here? We already went through this one. I believe we already did that one. So that was a bullish fair value gap. Now what happened when it went all the way up? Now it created imbalances. So imbalances, fair value gaps, I mean, it's just imbalance is another word for a gap that we could use as confirmation to take profit. So maybe price action wants to come down to fill. So for example, that's exactly what happened. These markets like to fill these imbalances, right? They like to fill these gaps. They don't want to leave a gap not filled. They love filling gaps. Like you guys as men should love to fill gaps. Simple as that. So, we make highs. You could potentially hit a beautiful trade here. And now you see we have an engulfing bearish candle to the downside. We fill this gap. We fill this gap. We wick into this gap. Use it as support. Come back up. To then come back down to fill that gap, and then we fill this gap. And I bet if I pull this over, you'll notice we filled it completely. We filled all these gaps. Every gap we filled. Okay? Oh, and I am probably down hella bread. 131. Alright, I'm out. So, you guys understand fair value gaps? Pretty self-explanatory, I hope. Any questions, put them in the comments. Let me know, and we'll get to it. Oh, here's a fucking bearish fair value gap. 3 candles, came back in, came back down. Simple, right? The next video I'm going to go over will be how to spot SMTs. I usually go off of SMTs on the 5 minute. So that's what I do. Like honestly, this could have been this here's an SMT right here. 5 minute SMT. Sneak peek into what next sneak peek into what the next video could potentially be. Boom, that's an SMT. What's it look like on NQ? Ta-da! SMT. SMT. Alright, that's it for the video, folks. Peace out. Have a fucking great one.